Welcome, everybody. This is Howard Klein with CRE Radio and TV. And today I am doing my first in a series of the influencers. Those are those people who I consider to be significant commercial real estate influencers. And my first guest is Mr. Brad Umansky. Brad is the president and actually the founder, and he has head coach of Progressive Real Estate Partners. He started in the brokerage business in 1992 after graduating from Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Pretty impressive. Got a bachelor's of science in economics. He's already way ahead of me. From 1992 to 2007, he had a very successful brokerage career with the Ontario offices of Grubb and Ellis. I'm very familiar. Lee and Associates, I'm also very familiar. And Sperry Van Ness, which is now SVN, who I actually had been a broker with in Las Vegas for about a year. During this period of time, Brad became one of the leading retail brokers in Southern California, having closed over 700 leases and investment sales transactions. I'm glad that you can remember this, Brad, because I've lost track of how many deals. People ask me, and I said, I don't know, maybe 1,000.
Yeah, I feel the same way. You
Yeah.
just say a number now. It's a lot.
Yeah. To date, he has been involved in over $1 billion of lease and sales activity. In 2008, he founded Progressive Real Estate Partners. Brad, he reminded me, Brad is the author of a book called Successful Strategies for Listing and Selling Investment Real Estate. And Brad, when we get done with this, you need to give me the Amazon link so I can put this in YouTube and maybe you can get some sales out of that. And I'll only take 80% of the profits.
Oh, good, because
And
then you can also have the 80% that Amazon takes as well. So
yeah. And he's also a featured broker in Rod Santomassimo's best-selling book, Brokers Who Dominate. And Rod is a very good friend of mine. So please, if you would, let's welcome Brad Umansky. Brad, hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Howard. I appreciate the kind introduction.
Great. So we are now going to get right back into this. And this is going to be about you, the people that I consider to be influencers, and maybe we can dig into a little bit about why and how you became an influencer. So why don't I start out with the first question? You are focused in Southern California's Inland Empire. Why don't you tell everybody where the Inland Empire is located, number one, and how long have you worked in the Inland Empire?
Yeah, so it's funny. The Inland Empire is one of the only areas in the entire country that is designated not by the name of a particular city. And so it incorporates the area that's east of, in Southern California, east of Los Angeles, and generally has a loose definition that I like to say includes San Bernardino and Riverside counties. And then depending upon what day of the week it is, we may include the eastern part of Los Angeles County as well, the very eastern part of LA County, east of the 57 freeway. But that's the area that's known as the Inland Empire.
Yeah, I always think of the Inland Empire in terms, well, because I'm involved in commercial real estate, I think of it primarily in terms of industrial and logistics. And maybe you might want to talk about that a little bit later on. I had lived in Southern California for the better part of 40 years. And about 3 years ago, my wife and I moved to Las Vegas. I continue to have a law office in Laguna Niguel, but I'm one of the many people who seem to be leaving Southern California for other parts of the country. Does this concern you at all relative to the Inland Empire and its growth?
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny the fact that there's certainly individuals that have elected to leave the state, and that California's growth was probably at its lowest last year than it's been in I think almost a century is what they've said. That being said, 1% of 40 million people is still an awful lot of individuals. And I think, because it is such a newsworthy story that people are leaving an area, it makes the news a lot. But I still believe that there's so many incredible strengths of this marketplace, that the Inland Empire will continue to be strong and will continue to grow over the course of the decades to come. There's no doubt that it is, there'll be areas of Northern California and Orange County and LA County, and there'll still be people who leave this area, but that's always true. People come to California, people leave California, people raise their families here, they get born here. And so I'm not as concerned about this market over the long term, in terms of people leaving the state.
That's interesting. As you well know, you can see from my white beard, I go back a bit of a ways, and I can remember going to meetings in the Inland Empire. Had a lot of matters in the Inland Empire during the savings and loan. I did a lot of work for, not Recon, but I forgot the name. There was a brokerage and property man, Roy Starasli. I don't know if you remember Roy.
I don't.
I'll remember the name. Dave Peacock and all those guys. In any event, I did a lot of stuff in Riverside and San Bernardino. And I remember going to meetings and how in the 90s, during the savings and loan fiasco and that recession, I can recall going to economic meetings where they talked about how the Inland Empire was still doing well. And while it was a lot of commercial properties that were having problems, it was apparently still having growth, or at least that's to the best of my recollection. That changed during the last Great Recession. All right. Why are you bullish on the Inland Empire now, particularly during this pandemic?
So there's no doubt, and this is a timestamp, right? We're sitting here in January 2021 in the middle of the pandemic, and so there's no doubt that the market is challenged by the pandemic. That being said, median house prices have just set a record of $475,000. It's the second highest. I think it actually was the highest growth in the entire country. There are large master plan communities. There's a master plan community called Ontario Ranch that is the number 5 selling master plan community in the country, and with 1,300 house sales last year. There's so much that is going on out here, and really, in so many ways, I mean, I don't know if you know this or not, but the population of San Bernardino and Riverside County exceeds 10 of the other states in the entire country. And as a result, we are kind of almost a state within a state, and that has its positives and that has its negatives. There's been 20 million square feet on average of industrial space built out here every single year for the last 6 or 7 years, and every drop of that space has been absorbed. There's massive recreation amenities. I mean, it's easy to get up to the mountains. It's easy to go to visit the casinos that are based out here. People love to go hiking up in the mountains and the deserts. They like the fact that they can get to the beaches. They like the fact that they can get to all the cultural amenities of LA and Orange County. So from that perspective, there's tons to do. This is an incredibly family-oriented region. I mean, people come out here to raise their families and buy their nice houses on their nice sized lots and have space, which is clearly why the market has done so well over the course of the pandemic, because this is the place where people could come to get some room. It's amazing when you go out and you drive. There is a massive amount of money going to infrastructure right now. I just can't believe, between the 15 freeway and the 10 freeways and just seeing all of the construction that is going on in anticipation of further growth. And I think you may probably recently heard about the fact that there's now going to be a high-speed train that's going to connect the high desert of Victorville area to Las Vegas. And so you actually could live in Victorville and work in Las Vegas a few days a week, and the commute is only going to be on a train a little bit more than an hour. So it's pretty amazing, everything that's happening. And add on top of that some incredible weather. I know that there are people in the coastal communities can't believe how some of us live out here in 100-degree heat during the summertime. But I'd say there's a lot of people who are living in Las Vegas and living in Phoenix that are also incredibly growing areas that seem to have found a way to work with that. And I have to say, especially as I get older, those 100-degree days feel really good on the bones. So I'm actually looking forward to summertime again.
Yeah, picking the bones, maybe. Brad, to the audience, one of the things that I'd like to mention is if you're watching this and you like what you hear or see, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and just hit the subscribe button, and the bell will give you notification as soon as we add something. All right, so let me move on now. Now, I've heard you talk about the attitude of the Inland Empire cities and governments. Could you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, you hear so much about government being a part of the problem, especially in many of the communities, I think, within the city of Los Angeles and LA County. And I have to say that one of the things that I love about working out here is how accessible the people in city government are, and how, in general, how pro-growth they are. Now, their hands are tied a lot of times in terms of making sure that, in terms of environmental regulations and in terms of making sure that projects are high quality. But I always feel that when I'm working with, especially a lot of the economic development people and city managers, that they're on our side, that they're trying very hard to help us get projects built. And I just can't say enough when you go to ICE, the International Council of Shopping Center Conference, when we have those, there's a huge number of cities that are present, but it's just great to see the cooperation between the private sector and the public sector in trying to get projects moving forward. And I just like to point that out because I think that's a very unique quality to this marketplace compared to so many of the California's coastal communities.
Let me also address a question that you didn't give
Sure.
to me. A little curveball here, but this isn't a big one. You are the current president of the Retail Brokers Network.
Correct.
Why don't you tell me why you're the president, other than the fact that you've been elected, but why you chose to be the president and what you find interesting and exciting about your position?
So the joke about becoming president of Retail Brokers Network is if you're the guy who's standing around the ICSC booth in Las Vegas on Wednesday morning, there's a good chance you can become the president of Retail Brokers Network. And as a guy who believes in being there on Wednesday morning, no, the process is really what we did is we put into a great system about 5 years ago where basically we know who the president's going to be unless something goes completely awry. We know who the president's going to be for the next 5 years out. And I volunteered about 3 or 4 years ago to put myself into into the process here. And I kind of joke around that I'm the pandemic president. And I really actually enjoy that because I enjoy writing and I enjoy communicating via technology. And so it works out really well. It cuts down on a lot of the cocktail hours that I end up, that I'm not necessarily participating in. But one of the things I love about Retail Brokers Network, and it's really, we've only been involved with it for a little less than 10 years, is before we joined as a company, my world was really it was purely a Southern California world. I really didn't know what was going on in Phoenix or Las Vegas or Birmingham, Alabama, or New Orleans or Philadelphia. And so the exchange of ideas that I get from around the country is just amazing. We just get phenomenal discussion about retailers and development, and negotiating skills and just all of the components that go into brokerage, but more, it's just amazing friendships. I now have hundreds of people throughout the country that I can call and get help, and where I can help as well. And so it's been a great experience. And I love being a part of it, and I love helping. For me, most of this is all about helping others. I've been fortunate that I've had a very successful brokerage career, and this is a great way for me to help others, also have successful careers.
And you might want to take your phone and put it in your lap or something because the sound is coming through on the desk. The buzzing.
I just stopped it. I'm so
okay.
sorry.
I
I'm so
generally
sorry.
turn mine off because it interrupts me. So you've been a Inland Empire retail guy for about 30 years. Huh? You don't
Yeah,
have
29. My anniversary will be a year. My 30th anniversary will be about 13 months from now.
You're a youngster. You don't have any gray hair. Yeah, fortunately, I have a little bit of gray hair, and the rest of it is white. Why don't you share some of your thoughts on retail, especially with regard to, but not exclusively with regard to the Inland Empire? Tell us about what's going on in retail
So,
there.
so a few thoughts, and I don't like to reiterate what the whole world reads all the time, because I find that that's just not very interesting. So, as a guy who makes his living off of retail, I will be one of the very first people to tell people that our market is over retailed. We have about 41 square feet of retail for every person in San Bernardino and Riverside County. And so it's not unusual when somebody calls me and says, hey, I have a 10-acre piece of land, it's zoned for a shopping center. Almost immediately, the very first thing I will think of is what else can be on that property, because also what's been fascinating is the value of that land is likely higher if you could put an industrial building on it. It's likely higher if you can put single family houses on it. It's likely higher if you can put an apartment building on it. And really, what it has to do is coverage. Shopping centers, because of how much parking they need and because of how pretty they need to be, they're expensive to build, and therefore you only can put about 20% of buildings on land. And so it just really is difficult to make the economics of a new retail project work, especially when we have so much of it. That being said, I think we're going to continue to see select projects built where people are moving. So we're seeing, Calamasa, Menifee, Murrieta. When you see people moving in, there's likely going to be some additional retail. There's also going to be certain users like the Raising Cane's of the world who just can't use somebody else's building. And so they are willing to pay a lot of money to, frequently knock down a restaurant building so that they can have their prototypical building right where they want it to be. So I think and I think it's one of the things that cities are really paying a lot of attention to. They recognize that what's going to make retail successful going forward is allowing more residents to move into an area and not be so influenced on trying to push more retail for sales tax dollars. Howard, would you mind if I mentioned something a little bit further on the sales tax
Oh,
concept?
absolutely. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I encourage cities to look at where their sales tax revenue comes from, because so often they keep saying, "Oh, we need more retail for sales tax dollars." And I venture to say, and I've had some city folks confirm this for me, that by the time you're done with car dealerships and gas stations and home improvement stores and maybe a Walmart or a Target and a few sit-down restaurants, just about all other retail really doesn't contribute that much to sales tax. And the reason why is because they're not really retail centers anymore. They're really service centers. Your typical, your grocery store doesn't contribute a lot of sales tax revenue. And then if you look at all of the other uses that are in a shopping center, which generally are health and beauty and restaurants and medical and other uses. So I think what the cities should be doing is they should bend over backwards for those uses that do create sales tax revenue, but they should also recognize that to force retail into certain projects just so that they can say that there's retail in it is probably not the best thing for them to do. And I know that sounds very strange coming from a retail guy, but I want good. I'm all about good retail. I'm not about just more of it. I think good is what's good. Good will be better for everybody over the long term.
Yeah. What are the issues that concern you most relative to the future growth in the Inland Empire?
So this goes back to my earlier comment where I said that one of the benefits of the Inland Empire is that we're part of the state of California. This is where I think we go to one of the negatives of the Inland Empire is that we're part of the state of California. The political mentality of the legislature, I guess the legislature and the executive branch makes me very uncomfortable. I think goes back to what we discussed earlier when it says, people, certain people are leaving. I mean, part of why they're leaving is because the marginal tax rates are as high as they are, and some of the other taxes are as high as they are. But forget taxes, because I'm not even convinced that California's taxes are all that much higher than other places. When you start adding in the fact that our home, our property taxes are low compared to many other places. Our income taxes are high, so it kind of balances out. But it's some of the regulations. The minimum wage increase is one that concerns me greatly, because I think one of the biggest mistakes that the government made is they told everybody what the minimum wage increase was going to be 5 years in advance, which gave them plenty of time, businesses, to plan for how to avoid having as many employees. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. It's why you order so many things online in terms of restaurant. I mean, one of my favorite things now is the Chipotlane, where you order your Chipotle food online and then you just pull up to the window. You don't even have to talk into one of those crazy squawk boxes anymore. You just pull up, you get your food, and that reduces labor costs. Some of the independent contractor regulations that recently passed. I mean, I just think that they didn't think that through at all. And so those are, and then obviously there's all of these regulations relative to home building. I heard a great comment the other day that said homes are for people to live and to develop wealth, and not to solve all of the world's problems. And what the person meant by that is, between solar energy and all of the energy conservation and all of the other methods of, all the problems that the world has, trying to solve them can't be all solved in a house. A house needs to be a place for people to live, and needs to be a place for people to develop equity over time. And so those are some of my concerns, is the fact that we're just part of a state that is definitely challenging business and challenging residents a bit too much these days. And I think the pendulum is going to swing in the other direction. It's just timing.
Pendulum always swings. And that's
Yes.
what people forget about that. And I've been around long enough that I've seen that swing back and forth, sometimes
Yep.
more, sometimes less, but it swings.
Yes.
Let me ask you this question. You're a very successful broker. You should be proud of your success. What do you attribute to your success?
Well, and I would say that I run in a successful brokerage firm now. I have been a very successful broker over the years, but I want to make sure that I give credit to the people in my firm that are really the ones who are driving our brokerage business these days. I think really what it comes down to is work. First of all, passion for the business. I really love the brokerage business. I think I love the brokerage business more than I love real estate per se. I think that there's just something about the entrepreneurial ability of being able to help people and serve people in creating value for their real estate. There's great pleasure out of that. So I think there's a passion. Clearly, it's hard work. I mean, I work long hours, but I do. It's not something. Work isn't necessarily a bad word. I definitely enjoy it. Doing what you say is critical. Being a long-term thinker. By thinking long-term, you can serve your clients in many. You're not trying to get everybody to be a seller and everybody to do something that's not in their best interest. You're trying to help people do what's in their best interest, knowing that if you do what's right today, they'll work with you, 3 to 5 years from now or whenever it is. So those are just some of the factors that contribute that have contributed to our team's success and certainly my success over the years.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important. I've been a broker 4 times, and there's a reason why I call it 4 times, because there are aspects of being a good broker and there are aspects of being a good attorney.
Yeah.
And in my case, I don't think that they necessarily, I'm a far better attorney than I am a real estate broker. What makes me good at both is that I really care about my clients and the
Yeah.
work that I do. And that would hold true both as a broker and as an attorney. But as an attorney, the critical thinking, I spend most of my time doing critical thinking and strategizing, whereas a
Hmm.
broker, I have to do a lot of cold calling,
Yeah.
and it's just not my favorite thing,
It's
you
it's
know?
very few it's very few people's favorite thing, but it is just like every great athlete, there's some part of training that they usually don't like. But if they want to win their competitions, they're going to have to do it. And so
Absolutely.
and when you meet that person who loves cold calling, boy, that's a special person, and I admire them greatly.
And this is one of the things about being a broker, not for myself, but I think for other people that's so great is that you don't have to have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree or a doctorate. As a matter of fact, in some instances, it may hurt you. I think in my case, it hurts me a bit. You can be a high school graduate and be a smart person and
Yep.
make a whole hell of a lot of money as a real estate broker. Just
Yep.
plain and
Very
simple.
true.
Yeah,
And I
go
yeah.
ahead.
I would agree with you that sometimes the intelligence can get in the way, and
Not in your
um,
case.
well, I think one of the things that I have fun at doing when running my firm is I love trying to find the strengths of our individual brokers and really try to help them focus on their strengths, and then I try to use our office support team to make up for some of their weaknesses. And so and everybody in our office has kind of different strengths, and so one person may be great at technology, and we help them with that, but they may not be as good as bringing in business. And then we may have somebody else who doesn't know how to use a computer or hates using a computer, but they're the best salesperson you've ever met. And if you can just help them acquire new opportunities, they're brilliant at it, and they have some of the best people skills. And so that's part of the fun. I think it's one of the great things about uh, Rod's book, Brokers That Dominate. I always tell people to read it is because what it really is it's 30 different stories of different people that have succeeded in the business. And you'll find that everybody's story is different. And
Yes.
that's one of the fun things about it. There's no story. Everybody's got a different story in the brokerage business, and every story works. So good.
In your case, and you were talking about how you try to get the most out of the people that you work with
Right.
and identify their strengths and weaknesses, I call that being a good leader,
Well, I
because
think
that's
I'm,
so
I'm, I'm
important.
trying. Good leader, good coach. Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So to wrap up, actually, I'll be adding one additional thing. But to wrap up, if I'm an investor, why should I invest in this market right now?
So, and I think when we're saying this market, are we referring to the timing, or are we referring to the geography? Are we saying the Inland Empire market, or are we just saying investing today?
It was your question. How do I know? No, I would think. I,
So then
sorry, I
let me focus on the Inland Empire.
yeah. Start with
So
the Inland Empire, and then talk about during the pandemic because we're still in the midst of it.
yeah, so the reason why I think people should definitely consider investing in the Inland Empire is growth. That's what makes an investment succeed over time is people and density. Helps to create value for investments. It helps to create value for the underlying value of land. That's why land prices in LA traded unbelievably crazy numbers because there's so little of it now. And when some of it becomes available, it creates allows someone to have an opportunity. And so that growth will continue to occur. I mean, I can't believe what land prices have evolved into in the Western Inland Empire, especially for industrial land. I mean, we're now hearing about, $50 a foot or higher for industrial parcels in the Western Inland Empire. This is property that probably sold for $2 or $3 a foot, 30 years ago. It's just amazing how that's occurred. And we're just seeing, lots of opportunity on the retail side in terms of, renovating and improving property. But it's ultimately about growth, and that's why I think that it's such a good market. It has potential. And then in terms of the different product types, everybody thinks the grass is greener, and every product type's a little bit different. I mean, multifamily, definitely has a level of has very little cash flow associated with it, but it has a much higher amount of appreciation. Retail is generally more cash flow oriented and is less management intensive. Industrial is probably we all hear is the most stable of the product types these days. So those are just some of the different angles. But I think as I watch what happens, once again, we're sitting here in January 2021. Who knows? The stock market's been doing some amazing things these last couple of days, with companies going up 30% and down 30% day in, day out. It's reminding me how much I like the real estate business, because of the fact that I can go to sleep one day and not have to worry about waking up the next day and finding out that the entire world has changed, or a property has lost 50% of its value inside of a couple of minutes. So it's I like it.
I'm not recommending GameStop. And I haven't for quite a few years. So if you like to gamble, I'd tell you that you're better off coming to Las Vegas and gambling there.
Sure.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us how someone might be able to get in touch with you, and remind people about your book and where to get that?
Sure. Okay, so first, to get in touch with me, I'm one of the most Googleable people. If you just put in Brad Umansky into your search bar, I'll pop up. The company's Progressive Real Estate Partners. We're based in Rancho Cucamonga. You can easily reach out to me at our phone number there, 909-230-4500. You can also reach me by email at brad@progressiverep.com. That's brad@progressiverep.com. But it's just really super easy. If you just Google and our website comes up, and then you can click and find me there. And then I did write, the last recession back in the 2008, 2009, I wrote a book called Value Added, Successful Strategies for Listing and Selling Investment Real Estate. And you can easily find that by going on Amazon. And I hate to say that I use Amazon for that, but it just really has been the easiest thing for me to do. If Barnes & Noble had made it just a little bit easier, I would probably only use Barnes & Noble, but you can find it on Amazon.
And my final comment, I wasn't expecting anybody to be on this live, but I believe it's Michael Polk from Polk Properties has said hello and joined us. Michael, you have any questions that you'd like to ask Brad? We weren't expecting any live commenters. Okay, no comments. Well, then, Brad, you and I have kind of crossed ships for years.
Yep.
I'm not even sure how long it is, but I'm glad that we finally have had the opportunity to sit down and talk with each other. Maybe sometime in the future I can have you on specifically about one of my retail shows that I'm doing. I don't know if you recall, but in the beginning of the pandemic, I did a webinar for the Retail Brokers Network about retail, and maybe we can do some business together. I'd love to be able to refer you some business.
Sounds good. We'd love to work with you. I really appreciate the invitation. This was a lot of fun. Glad we figured out all of our technological challenges that we had prior to getting going live. And once again, this was great. And enjoy your time up there in Las Vegas.
It's been snowing the last 2 days where I live.
Wow.
If you could believe
Amazing.
that. Yeah, our altitude is pretty high up. Brad, well, you take care. Stay healthy.
Thank you. Stay healthy too.
Love to see the rest
Howard.
of you. Bye-bye.
Bye.